Why do we have to wake up Monday morning to an image of Donald Trump lionizing Charlie Kirk? Why is he taking sides in this at all as the president of the United States of America, where he should be unifying America, not participating in a one-sided presentation of the life of Charlie Kirk in order to use it then as a weapon against those that don't agree with Donald Trump? This unity of government and alt-right Christian nationalism is so unseemly, is so beneath the office of the presidency, the office of the vice presidency. But they've lost complete sight of what that image would look like to the rest of the world. For those that believed in Charlie Kirk, going and grieving and celebrating him was the right thing to do. But for the president of the United States, that was not the place or forum for him to go. But it is if he's using it as a platform to spread his own version of hate, to try to suppress his own version of criticism of his administration. He's not for First Amendment rights. He's for crushing those who dissent against him. And now we've gone even further. And if Pam Bondi thought she was the Attorney General before, she can't possibly think that she is now. First I thought it was Kash Patel that wasn't long for his job. Now I believe it's Pam Bondi. Not when Donald Trump overrides her, embarrasses her, and countermands her, and publicly rebukes her, not once, but twice, over the course of several hours, about the Eastern District of Virginia Prosecutor's Office, when Eric Seibert did the right thing and left his position as one of the leading federal prosecutors in America, top 5, top 6 in my count, because he refused to have that office used by Donald Trump as a weapon to go after his political enemies like Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, to drum up phony and false charges against her when none would be proper to bring, to violate the federal principles of prosecution, the principles of federal prosecution, to violate the Department of Justice manual, to violate his ethics, when he said, no, I will not do that. I will not be complicit in the most corrupt Department of Justice ever. When he left that office, Pam Bondi stepped forward and decided that she was going to maybe appoint somebody of her liking to that position. But Donald Trump took to social media and went after Pam Bondi, not once, but twice. He then demanded that she, quote unquote, Pam, go after immediately and prosecute those that Donald Trump does not agree with. In particular, he wrote on his Truth Social account, Pam, this is like a private memo, but purposely made public by Donald Trump to remind Pam Bondi, in case she ever forgot, who's in charge and who she works for. Pam, I've reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adams, Shifty, Schiff, and Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Donald Trump purportedly paraphrasing other people in his social media ecosphere that went after these people. There were Democratic opponents. Donald Trump continues in his blast of Pam Bondi. Then we almost put in a Democratic-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past. I don't even know what he's talking about. Eric Seibert was bipartisan. He was supported by the 2 senators from Virginia who gave them the blue slip to allow him to be confirmed. That was in May. This is almost October. That's not the reason he fired Seibert. He fired Seibert, or Seibert resigned because he refused to go after Letitia James on a false claim of mortgage fraud. But he continues in his bash of Pam Bondi, a woke rhino who's never going to do his job. His job? He'd been the leader of counterintelligence. He had been the leader of prosecutions related to drug enforcement. He had been the leader to make us safer at one of the most prestigious segments of the Department of Justice, the Eastern District of Virginia. That's why two of the worst Democratic senators pushed him so hard. They gave the blue slip, something they've denied Alina Habba. He even lied to the media and said he quit and that we had no case. No, I fired him, and there is a great case, and many lawyers and legal pundits say so. And here comes Donald Trump's pick for his U.S. attorney. Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. Prosecute. All right, let's unpack that. Then after Pam Bondi got that public rebuking by way of social media post, you live by the social media post, Pam, you die by it. She then said, well, I'll appoint somebody. I got somebody in mind. I'll make her the deputy assistant U.S. attorney, and then I'll elevate her as acting interim. Maggie Cleary, everybody. And then crickets. Who's Maggie Cleary? Is she qualified for the position? Has she ever been a federal prosecutor before? Sort of. She's 8 years out of law school. I mean, no attack on people 8 years out of law school, but it is a short amount of time to be taking over the Eastern District of Virginia's prosecutor's office. Maggie Cleary was in the Western District of Virginia. Right after she started her job in 2020, she was accused of being on Jan 6th at the Capitol. She was investigated. She was eventually cleared, but considered herself to be a target and became a MAGA darling as a result. She's obscenely unqualified for the position. And then Pam Bondi tried to pick her, but that's not what Donald Trump wanted. See if you can guess what Donald Trump wanted when I repeat for you this phrase from his social media. Lindsay Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot. Who do you think he wants for that position? Who is Lindsay Halligan, you may wonder? She is a 10-year graduate of law school that used to work at a reasonably well-known insurance defense firm in Florida that I knew called Cole, Scott & Cassane. She handled traffic accidents and slip and falls, much like Alina Habba handled parking lot cases. Never been a federal prosecutor before, never been a prosecutor at all, not even in the Florida State Attorney's Office. She's not qualified. Nothing against insurance defense lawyers. I understand why some people want to go into that business, but it's usually a reflection that was not, you didn't have a lot of choices coming out of law school. You're not going to get paid a lot of money. And you take that as one of your first jobs. I can't tell you how many people I know in my career whose first jobs were in insurance defense. Certainly not the stepping stone to become the Eastern District of Virginia or any major U.S. attorney. In fact, I defied Donald Trump and the Department of Justice to write me, comment to me, or DM me and tell me any other U.S. attorney in history, at least for the top 5 or 10 positions, that's ever not been a prosecutor before, not worked at or near the office, and came out of being an insurance defense lawyer. But Donald Trump thinks Lindsay Halligan is cute. She's got that blonde fox thing going for her. They all kind of look alike. They're all sort of like Hope Hicks, Alina Habba, Lindsay Halligan. He likes to have pretty women around him. It's like when he was gushing over Princess Kate when he first met her, struck by her beauty. You're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. Really creepy coming out of Donald Trump's mouth, don't you think? So he picked Lindsay Halligan. What's she been doing since she left Cole, Scott & Cassane, this insurance defense firm in Florida? How did she get connected to Donald Trump? Well, they were floundering around looking for local counsel in the Mar-a-Lago case that was pending up in Fort Pierce, Florida. And they picked Lindsay Halligan. I don't know if it was out of the Yellow Pages. Remember those? Or she was some sort of MAGA conservative Federalist Society. And they said, well, Lindsay Halligan, she's had some cases in front of Eileen Cannon. All right, she'll be okay. What did she do? Nothing. She was local counsel. The case was being handled by others like Todd Blanche and Emil Bovee. But she signed her name. You have to have local counsel for these kind of jobs when you're not already admitted into the Southern District of Florida, like I am. And so she signed off on it. So that Lindsay Halligan, who just recently back in her career was wearing like some sort of outfit that looked like she worked at a Hooters chain. That Lindsay Halligan. We'll put up that photo too. She's the one on the right, just in case you wanted to know. So she's working in the White House. She's scouring over the Smithsonian files because Donald Trump wants to make changes at the Smithsonian Institute and all of the 8 or 9 other museums in Washington, because they're too truthful, because they are telling the story about how white people abused people of color like slaves. He doesn't like that story. He doesn't like the story about presidents being impeached like him. And so he wants to change the narrative. He wants to change the facts. He wants to change the truth. And that's what Lindsay Halligan's been doing, trying to make recommendations as to how to take. Thank God I saw the African American Experience Museum while Biden was in office. So I got to learn really about the horrendous treatment of blacks, then slaves, by Americans, because now I wouldn't be able to do that, apparently. Lord knows what he's going to do when Lindsay Halligan makes recommendations about the Holocaust Museum. Who's going to be running that? Former Nazis? So that Lindsay Halligan. So Donald Trump's looking around. Who would be a good meat puppet, crash test dummy to take over for the Eastern District of Virginia? Lindsay Halligan, of course. So that's the second embarrassment of Pam Bondi. She didn't want Lindsay Halligan. She didn't want another Florida blonde taking over the job. She wanted Maggie Cleary, who nobody's also ever heard of. But Donald Trump didn't want Maggie Cleary. So then right after Pam, think about how embarrassing this would be. If anybody had an ounce of brain power, they would be so embarrassed by this, they would quit and resign. Pam Bondi will never do that. So Pam Bondi says, I want Maggie Cleary. I'm going to make her the acting interim. And Donald Trump says, no, I'm going to be you could do that for a minute, but I'm going to be nominating Lindsay Halligan, who I just told you should pick, and you didn't do it. Now, is Lindsay Halligan competent to run that office? No. Is she as competent to run that office as Alina Habba in New Jersey? Yes. Very similar backgrounds, by the way. No federal prosecutor experience, no prosecutor experience whatsoever. At least Alina Habba had been a lawyer about double the amount of time. One was a parking lot lawyer, parking garage lawyer representing parking garages. The other one was an insurance defense lawyer. Again, obscenely unqualified. I don't think Lindsay Halligan's going to be as stupid as Alina Habba and make a lot of comments and statements so she doesn't get ultimately confirmed, because once nominated, she's got to get confirmed like in 120 days. So I think she'll be a lot quieter. We'll give her that, but we'll have to see what happens next. But is she going to get confirmed? I'm not sure about that. Donald Trump is having a hard time getting his U.S. attorneys confirmed. He's had about 20 or 30 of them either stuck, having to withdraw them, getting them rejected by the Senate, because they're not qualified. The Senate is getting frustrated, including the right wing and the Republicans of the Senate. Send us candidates that we can get behind. Please. They're about as qualified as Matt Gaetz was to be the Attorney General. So I think it's 50-50 at best for Lindsay Halligan to get in. She doesn't have the body of work. We'll leave it at that. She doesn't have the body of work to get this position. She doesn't have the credentials. She doesn't have the gravitas. She doesn't have the instinct. She doesn't have the knowledge. She doesn't have the legacy experience. She has none of it. And this is not kindergarten. This is the Eastern District of Virginia. It's known as the Rocket Docket for a reason. Judges move their cases quickly. It has counterterrorism and anti-terrorism cases being brought on behalf of the federal government there. She can't run this. I wouldn't let her run my bath, let alone the Eastern District of Virginia. It's up there with the Southern District of New York, the Eastern District of New York, the Central District of California, D.C., Boston, Chicago. It's like the major leagues. This isn't even taking a baseball player from like single A up to the majors. This is like taking them from semi-pro ball somewhere overseas and making them making them the starting center fielder for fill in the blank of your favorite team. But it also is a tremendous embarrassment against Pam Bondi. I don't think she's long for this world. She's been Loomered. Laura Loomer hates her. Donald Trump loves Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer has said she calls her Pam Blondie, attacks her constantly, especially about the Epstein files. So write this down, put this down in the time capsule for Monday, Legal AF. So case I'm right, you'll say, Popok didn't call that out. 1, Pam Bondi's not going to make it. 2, they're either going to elevate Todd Blanche up to the number 1 position, or Donald Trump's going to bring in Eileen Cannon, the judge that bailed him out in Mar-a-Lago, speaking of Mar-a-Lago, down in Florida, elevate her to the attorney general, which she was on the list originally to be the attorney general in a leaked list before Trump came into office during the transition period. And it was never denied by the Trump administration. I think it's going to be her. That's certainly a case or they're going to save Eileen Cannon for a appellate court position on the way to the Supreme Court. You heard it here, first, folks. And Kash Patel is going to be out, and they already have his replacement on the payroll. That's the former Attorney General from Missouri who got brought in about 3 weeks ago to be the deputy FBI director next to Dan Bongino, the right-wing podcaster. They're going to bring that guy in. And all of this kind of comes to a head as Donald Trump takes the stage at Charlie Kirk's memorial. And to be clear, to end this hot take, it is one thing to acknowledge the horrific death of another human being at the hands of a weapon. Okay? It is another to oppose his veneration and oppose his martyrdom. And that's what we're doing here. We're opposing the lionization of Charlie Kirk and the use of his name to crush Democrats and those that oppose Donald Trump. And we'll do that every day here on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Thanks for joining us this Monday. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button. Slide over to Legal AF Substack, do the same thing there, become a paid member. This is the way you can become a card-carrying member of the Legal AF community. Substack, podcast, YouTube. Thanks for being here. I'm Michael Popok, and I'll see you later this afternoon. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touches Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.